a precursor discussion on serverless is needed before we get into Lambda function. So many people have different understanding or opinion on serverless terminology. Like serverless means customer don't have to manage the server. Okay, so the servers, when I say server, the physical infrastructure is already managed by AWS, the physical infra plus the virtual machine operating system, right? So this is something which AWS is going to manage in serverless or serverless computing offering. So the most commonly used serverless computing option is the Lambda, Amazon Lambda function, which is equivalent to Azure function or similar services, Google functions, and so on. So they call it as function as a service. So these days, a lot of, function as a service is under PaaS offering only. Under PaaS offering, we have database as a service, function as a service, container as a service, and so on. So all these comes under platform as a service category. So different offerings are there. You get DB as a service, function as a service, container as a service. So this example, Lambda function, it comes under platform as a service offering, and it is a serverless computing option where customer don't have to manage the virtual machine server or the physical server infrastructure. So coming to the serverless computing introduction, somewhere I had some slides on that. Let me quickly see. Okay, so before cloud came into existence, we had different options for our application to be hosted. Either we had our own data center in our own premises. We had a separate real estate. We had a separate server room or data center where we used to run that application. And sometime back, we also had options for co-locations like virtual private cloud or managed private cloud, where we go and utilize the spaces from companies like let's say IBM used to have a lot of data centers, or HP as a company, they used to have a lot of data centers. So they had a lot of real estate space, data center location. They already have the equipments like cooling, power, and excess physical infrastructure. So what they did is they started creating virtual private cloud environment or managed private cloud environment, where in this private cloud environment, different customers who want to have a kind of data center hosting experience managed by IBM or HP or Dell or different company, they started providing some spaces, some rack space or some data center space to customers. And whichever organization want to have the services managed and maintained by IBM. See, IBM is a company who's more specialized on hardware and data center servers and all those things, right? So they will take care of the hardware management, the data center management, security management at the physical infrastructure level. So all those will be as a shared. It's like instead of staying in our own separate home, we are going and renting a space like a flat or in a community. So we are going and sharing the cost with other customers who are utilizing that space. When it comes to cooling or power or the consumption, it will be a shared cost. So IBM manages that private cloud environment, but the customers are there will be multiple customers who are having that particular environment utilized. So there is a small difference between VPC and MPC. I will clarify that. See, VPC is virtual private cloud. So IBM has a data center, kind of a cloud experience data center they have got, and within that private cloud environment they are having multiple customers who are running their applications and consumers or customers who are running their applications there. Whereas MPC is a slightly different concept. It's a private cloud, but the environment, the data center is owned by IBM, and the customer just pays for the shared cost and dedicated bill, whatever they are getting, right? So pay for the consumption, I would say. Okay, but in MPC, the data center is owned by the customer, right? Let's say a big manufacturing company or some specific organization like XYZ, Nestle, or Audi, or different customer like Nissan or whatever, right? So they have their own data center, but the management of the data center, management of the private cloud environment is managed by IBM here. It's slightly different, right? So the customer owns the data center. If there is some additional space that is needed, or additional rack that is needed, or additional capacity that is needed, the funding will come from the customer XYZ. But the management of the infrastructure, management of the IT landscape, the data center, the security, the surveillance, the server management, the regular routine will be taken care by IBM. So that is the reason it is called as managed private cloud, a private cloud managed by a third party. So this concept is also there, and this is a virtual private cloud option where within IBM data center, there are multiple customers who are sharing the space and they are paying for whatever they are consuming it. There is one more concept called co-location, where the network vendors or different data center options or locations are there. If we want to evacuate our services, and if we are spending a lot of money on our own data center and real estate, we can go to this co-location facility, which is more or less like a virtual private cloud where we can go and run our services. So here in co-location, it need not be a cloud-like experience. Even it can be just a data center space where we can go and run our application in our neighbor's data center facility, right? That is what we call colo or co-location. See, that is what used to happen before cloud came into the public cloud came into existence. The private cloud, the co-location, those are the options that customers were utilizing it. But if it is their own complete data center, there is a huge expense. When they go for virtual private cloud, the cost reduces. If then they go for co-location, there also they get a lot of cost benefit. But after yeah, these are all the questions that we used to have. Do I need a UPS? Whether I have the adequate capacity? Whether how frequently we need to patch the servers? I'm talking about the physical infrastructure, physical server, physical network, physical storage, the power, cooling, and all those challenges, right? So those are all something which we have to think about before public cloud. But now, after public cloud has come, there are multiple offering within public cloud, infrastructure as a service. Today we are focusing more on platform as a service. So in platform as a service, we don't have to worry about physical infrastructure, we don't have to worry about virtualized layer, we don't have to worry about the virtual machine and the operating system. We just have to think about the development of our business application, new features, functionalities. Only that much is what we generally have to focus on. So serverless really means I don't have to think about how many servers I need, what kind of server, physical server I need, what kind of virtualized infrastructure I need, what is the right size. Those things we don't have to really worry about. I don't have to think about server. Serverless means servers are completely managed by the provider. Here in our case, it is AWS who is going to manage the physical server, the virtualized platform, the virtual machine, the operating system. So all those utilization, the auto scaling, the management, the right sizing, all those things will be taken care by AWS. So that's the reason it is called a serverless. Server is needed always to run your application. We need a server, we need a capacity, we need an infrastructure, but who manages that infrastructure is what is different here. So the infrastructure, the server is managed by provider. So that's the reason we call it as serverless. We don't have to provision or manage anything. The servers are provisioned and managed and maintained by AWS. So it also automatically gets increased and decreased based on the use case pattern. It will do it, and we just pay for only the consumption and the value that we are getting out of it. There is a built-in scalability, built-in availability. There is a built-in integration. Fault tolerance is there, so we don't have to really worry about the I mean, how they provide us the availability and uptime. They guarantee us 99.99% availability, and they will provide it if you are going and choosing the right architecture, right design. So what is serverless? Serverless, we are abstracting the server functionality and utilizing it for our application, but the actual server management maintenance is taken care by the provider. So there are a lot of different uh, use cases and scenarios. So maybe like let's not get into the Lambda as of it, but there are a lot of different services which we can consume at different offering level. In compute, Lambda is a classic example. Even step functions and other options are there. In messaging, SQS is a serverless option. Integration, API gateway, Cognito, authentication for your application, at security offering, monitoring, CloudWatch is again a serverless option. So these are the list of services. Most of the application developers, they are trying to use these serverless offering out of different categories. In compute category, they will use Lambda for any event triggered activities or any specific automation, or see, the Amazon Lambda is very very famous because it is used by DevOps engineers for their routine activities for automation or whatever. Even it is used by cloud operations team to do some event based trigger. Even the developers are also running some functions within Lambda. So Lambda is a very highly used powerful service from compute category. Similarly, the other services will be used by the developers case to case for monitoring, logging, for data integration or data pipeline or any authentication. So there are different services that are available. We will get to know each of these services as we discuss in the future. So serverless does not mean there are no server. There are servers, but the servers are managed by AWS. In this case, they maintain it, they manage it, they do all their routine tasks. So it means like you are not the one who is managing it. Customer is not managing it, but on our behalf, AWS is managing it and providing variety of services under serverless category. So when you always hear about serverless architecture, so the application developer has created a solution using all this serverless component. That's why they call it a serverless architecture. So in the complete architecture, there is no need to think about or worry about the server. We just need to worry about the product application code, the access, the control, and the security aspect. So that's why people call it a serverless architecture. Serverless architecture has complete services which are under the serverless category, like API gateway, Lambda function, S3, CloudWatch, DynamoDB. In the complete solution, we don't have anything where we have to manage the server. So that's how the software design patterns are being evolving these days. So application developers are trying to have their application architecture in a complete serverless architecture these days. So the server software hardware is completely managed by the AWS provider. As a developer, as an organization, as a customer, we really don't have to think about it, or we don't have to manage it. So in traditional days, we have to manage the physical server, the virtual machine, the operating system, the application. So all these are now offloaded to AWS. As a customer, we just have to manage the Lambda function or whatever the specific serverless component that we are using. So we will get into the Lambda function tomorrow. Okay, so not we don't have to worry about it today. So serverless has three major benefit, right? It provides you automatic scaling, right sizing. It is easy to scale up and down based on the customer requirement. Okay, Lambda function, we need at least 1 hour for that. So we don't have time today. So tomorrow we will get into the Lambda function. But these days, whenever you are working with application developers, you will see they are trying to develop services on serverless architecture. When you hear serverless architecture from the application developer team, they are talking about these services instead of EC2 instances, or instead of those what do you call look, I mean, options where customer has to take care of servers. Here it is completely managed and maintained by AWS, the underlying physical servers and the virtual machine and the operating system. So any questions on what we have discussed? So today we were primarily discussing on elastic beanstalk. Tomorrow we will have the discussion on Lambda function. Okay, so let's see. Let's also see some event-driven examples, so that way you get to understand how we can also have hands-on experience on that. Go ahead. Go ahead with the question. Okay, someone came on.
No, no. I was actually no questions. Sorry.
No worries.
Yeah.
That's fine. That's fine. So if there are no questions, yeah, feel free to drop off. So this is what I thought of discussing. I thought of discussing two topics, but we are